A very good evening and a very, very warm welcome. Once again, I hope everyone is safe, everyone is doing well. And please do let us know in the chat box. We would love to hear from you. Today, we've got a very exciting session. I think something that each one of us will have lots of takeaways from. We're going to be talking about image. We're going to be talking about Prim. It's a new acronym that I am also learning, so I'm excited about that. We're going to talk about Prim Up, the brand called You, Reinvent and Reboot with Dr. Kuiljeit Uppaal, who's the world's first image scientist, and she's a genius polymath. And if you don't understand what a genius polymath is, neither do I. We're going to ask her that question right as soon as I do her introduction. So this session, I think we're going to focus on understanding what the elements of Prim are, which is your persona and your image management. And we will relook at ourselves as an entity and see how it can become an incredible version of ourselves, keeping in mind a few simple yet powerful things for your inner, outer, and social self. It will also help us challenge adversity with positivity. Dr. Kuljit is an inspirational polymath, being an image scientist, educationist, pilot, entrepreneur, author, and a creative director with lots and lots of records and accolades, who has also brought honor to India by being the first image scientist in the world. So this is not only in India, she's the first image scientist in the world. She is an Asia Book of Records holder, a World's Records India holder, a Bharat Book of World's Record, and the India Book of Records. So it's a tongue twister, as you can see. She's also researched and she's created a lot of creative concepts like Prim, DPrim, Premier, and PIQ. And the first ever persona and image management has been applauded the world over for her work and the volume of contribution in the world of education, innovation, and social impact. So, Dr. Kuljit, welcome to Sipping Thoughts. We're excited to have you here.
Hi, Sukriti. How are you? Thank you so much for having me here on Sipping Thoughts. I'm as excited as you are, I think, to be able to actually have this little dialogue with all of you and your listeners and your viewers. So thank you so much for inviting me here.
So, first, tell us what's a genius polymath? Because we're all curious and always wanting to learn more.
A genius polymath, well, that's something that I have been bestowed with. A polymath typically is a person who has expertise in multiple areas. So for the fact that as you just shared with the audience, I'm an image scientist, I'm a pilot, I'm a creative director, I'm an educationist, I'm an author, and I've done a few other several things, and all of them at a certain level. So it's evidently been qualified as something having, a certain level of proficiency, apart from just having interests. So you have a certain expertise level, and because of which you get classified as a polymath. So evidently I was bestowed with this title of genius polymath a few years ago. And yeah, that's what I am, evidently. Not that, I haven't made too much about it, but yes, I'm very grateful that I've been acknowledged in that manner.
So thank you for that, and thank you for that explanation, and congratulations on that. Now tell us, an image scientist, image consultant, image coach, what are all of these terms? Because they're thrown around, and we'd like to understand that also a little bit better.
Right. In fact, very recently, Sukriti, just a couple of months ago, there was someone who had invited me for their talk show. And coincidentally, she asked me the similar kind of question. I know that the question keeps getting popped up every single time because people don't know who an image scientist is. And she was saying, I kind of Googled out and I was like searching for this term and I saw something to do with pictures and images. And I was like, oh, shoot, I wish it were the reverse. I wish I had done my research earlier than these guys. And, anyway, jokes apart, the word image actually has been around for many, but hasn't been popularized as much. But regardless, the image industry, lesser known to most people, actually has a 7-level hierarchy of sorts in terms of, your professional aptitude, your education, your proficiency, your skills, etc. So maybe for the advantage of your viewers, I think I will just kind of quickly run past that because I think it'll give more clarity in terms of the term image scientist. So the lowest level is level 1, and of course the highest is level 7. And I know, as you said, most people know the image consultant term. So an image consultant typically is at level 3 in that entire hierarchy. The hierarchy, like I said, goes by n number of skills and proficiencies and educational qualifications, starting with just certifications, or even, let me say, intuitive ability, of being able to understand what a product is, or what artistic elements are all about. So you have people like personal shoppers and stylists, etc., who come at 1 and 2 and things like that. You have an image consultant at 3. You have an image management consultant or coach at 4, and then a branding specialist at 5, an expressive image therapist at 6, and top of the rung is the image scientist. Now, what is the difference between them? So firstly, an image scientist is a PhD holder in the subject. So this whole subject has been looked at from a very scientific angle, from a very academic perspective. So as you know, and as you've announced, I'm the first PhD holder, if I may say, or the first image scientist in the world. And I think I'm the only one right now. There isn't anyone else who has yet qualified to that level. All the other levels are at certifications to about a degree or even a master's. A master's is only the one who's the expressive image therapist, but typically these are people who have understood or rather who deal with the areas which are more physical dominated. So it's not so much to do with the scientific or the mental health or the other aspects which are more to do with the sociological or psychological elements, like I said. So it's more to do with the physical appearance, maybe a little bit to do with the artistic elements in terms of designing and stuff like that. So there's a whole volume of difference in terms of what an image scientist typically looks at. There's an entire research element, like I said there. And also for the fact that I have come up with my own invention. We've all heard of EQ and IQ, right? So my invention is PIQ, which is the world's first ever persona and image quotient. So that's another thing. And of course, apart from that, I have delved into the in-depth study of psychology, sociology, anthropology, semiotics, design, aesthetics, mathematics, statistics, and have devised mathematical models in the subject. So it's a whole academic dimension which has never been done in the world. And that makes it extremely unique. And as a researcher, of course, even after my PhD, I continued and I created this whole science, the science of Prim, which is persona and image management. And of course, like I said, I have those innovations. Some of them you dealt with, right? Deep Prim and Premier, etc.
Dr. Kuiljeit, now let's make it very simple. Now, is image art or is it science? Because when we think about image, right, and, so we think that this is more of an art, I mean, when I think about, okay, who is Sukirti? What is the image I want to do? Or is it a mix of both?
It's a mix of both, actually. So what you are talking of is what a typical image consultant may have shared with you. So yes, you are talking of the artistic elements, and that's why you're saying it's more like an art where you know how to dress well, you know how the colors that would go with you and so on and so forth. But actually speaking, since we talk of social sciences, now social sciences have psychology in them. They have sociology, anthropology. These are the other domains which are also very scientific in nature. And apart from that, the structures that are created in the science are mathematical. So there's a lot of deployment of advanced level statistics and mathematics to create those models, which have involved empirical testing. So the entire profiling has changed to a science. You know what I'm saying? Because now it is empirically tested. It's no longer whims and fancies. It's no longer casual stuff.
You can put me in a number chart and figure out what will make sense for Suki.
Yeah, so actually, so in fact, the tool that I just spoke of, the invention of mine, is absolutely mathematically driven backend. So it has nothing to do with just whims and fancies. It's hardcore this way or that way. There are numbers, and that's taken years to develop. So it's not something that's happened offhand. So yeah, I would say it's a mix of both.
Fantastic. So now I think everybody is very eager. Let's get started. We want to understand how we can prim up the brand called you and reinvent and reboot. So I hand over the session to you.
All right. Thank you, Sukriti. So what I'm going to do for the audience, at least, I think for the next half an hour, 40 minutes, I'm going to go into a monologue of sorts to try and share what I have to and what I can. Of course, disclaimer is here that we have limited time. I can't put in, all of the years of hardcore research and all of the content out in one shot. But what I'm going to attempt to do is definitely, kind of share snippets and valuable snippets so that you have some takeaways at the end of it. And probably then in the end, we will have a Q&A where I would love that I can, get to answer some of your questions that may be really bothering you or that you're really inquisitive to know about. So I would love to do that. And yeah, so let's start. But before that, I think I want to just share a few things which probably may add some value. I'll move along, and I don't know if you want to make notes, you can do that. But otherwise, I think the recording would be available, so I guess you can hear me out again. So now coming to this subject, like I said, Prim. That's persona and image management. As you just heard me say, this is empirically tested, So we're talking of this whole subject from both domains. So right now, I think what you should do is just forget the science or the art part of it and just take it like, okay, this is a concept which I want to know more about. As simple as that. Prim basically deals with individuals and the process of their enhancement towards being a more confident, a more powerful, a more incredible version of themselves. All right. So it's an acronym, like I said. Prim and Powerful is my book, but that I'll share about later. Prim is persona and image management, and it's an ongoing process. Okay. It's a continuous, proactive process because it'll only happen if you get into it. It can't just happen organically. You have to put in some kind of effort into it. So what does it do? It's a process of assessing, of appraising, of organizing, and managing the impact of your inner and your outer attributes, your appearance, and the resulting response and reaction of yourself, um, and not just and yourself, I would say on yourself and others in line with the achievement of your goals. So when I'm talking of appearance, by the way, mind you, I'm not talking of appearance as in, clothing and whatever is typically believed. I'm talking of you as a person, you as an entity, your aura, your entity, your entire brand, your package, everything. How you speak, how you deal with people, what are your thoughts like, what is your behavior pattern like, what's your etiquette like, how do you groom, how do you relate to people, how are you typically wired, etc., etc. All of that. How do you appear to people, largely speaking? So I'm talking of the entire entity called you. Okay, so it's not about your external manifestation pretty much. That's a part of it. That's about it. So basically, when we talk of Prim, we are looking at a divine or a powerful trident of sorts that has three prongs to it. Okay, so it's like, I'd say, an amalgamation of three prongs. One, persona or your personality. Two would be image. And third would be your strategic self-management. Okay, so let me just quickly run past what they are before I delve into the detailing. So when we're talking of persona or your personality, we're talking of your core foundation, your values, your beliefs, your attributes that manage your thoughts, your feelings, actions, and create a better environment for you and yourself and the people around you and all of that, right? Because that's the way we operate. Your image. Now, there are 6 core elements of image, which I'll share as I move along more in depth. But those 6 core elements have emerged out of a lot of, again, scientific testing and mathematical models. And those are self-concept, verbal skills, clothing, body language, etiquette, and grooming. Okay. And these help you to being an authentic and appropriate you. The third angle, which is the strategic self-management, like I said, that wraps in the know-how and the skills to manage your life better, the skills that make you more productive at your workplace or your business or as a person also. You could be maybe a non-professional, but that's okay. You can still kind of work on your skills, right? Um, Skills that will help you to have well-defined goals and outcomes. You can manage your commitments better, your time more strategically, to be more self-motivated, to take initiative, to network better and more tactically, if I may say, and many such life skills that work towards self-growth and constantly contribute to your personal and professional self and a better work environment for yourself and your co-workers, because all of this involves a better space for yourself. And so when you are in a better space, it also impacts your co-workers, right? So this is what, largely speaking, the whole world of Prim revolves around. And of course, like I mentioned, the other concepts are there, which I'm not dealing with today. I'm not going to touch that at all, but I'll just stick with Prim pretty much. So now the fact is, today, it has become very important to look at this subject because Darwin's theory is in full play, okay? Survival of the fittest. And we know that the world is in a perennial state of dynamism today. And every mortal is thus directly or indirectly, forced to subscribe to the rapidity of the changing scenarios. Whether it's technology or concepts or it's ideologies and mindsets, one notices the swiftness of change and evolution as an integral part of the global scenario. And that's why this propels a need for constant readiness and preparation to hold on to the vigor of the changing times and stay in control of that setting. So it's extremely, extremely important to understand that while you have your technical skills in play, you're good, probably you're bang on. What you can do is complement that by bringing in Prim into your lives, so that you have an edge up over competition. And we know competition has spanned across all levels, all profiles, all ages, everything possibly that you can think of. So it's important to kind of look at this area, which has been not really a focus area pretty much, but it's picked up steam in the last few years. Now, one has to take immense care of one's persona and image and work towards that desired impact that you want to make in your professional, in your personal, in your social space. And these elements that I spoke of can contribute to making that thing happen. The presence, your presence can be made felt and you can be a cut above the rest. So now, when we're talking of Prim, we're also talking of authenticity. We're talking of you being a true representation. And that's what it helps you to do. A true representation of your inner and your outer self. And it helps you to nurture yourself, like a beautiful summation at the end of the day to having a successful and satisfying life ahead. Now, the genesis of this entire Prim journey lies in the first thing, which is understanding your core foundation and values and what you represent. It's very, very important. I have, given a lot of simple but powerful techniques in my recent book called Prim and Powerful, which is on Amazon, of course. And maybe you can pick up a copy to kind of, amplify the learning of whatever you take today. There are 20 chapters which engage with all of this thing, inner self, outer self, and social self, and it will help you to enhance your self on all fronts. So basically, Prim is going to help you on all of these elements that I've just spoken of and the power moves, which of course I've suggested in the book. I have an idea, Sukriti, as I'm talking along about this book. By the time we reach the end and we have, people coming up with their questions and maybe they want to also share their takeaways, I have an idea and tell me if it's okay. Maybe some of you in the next 24 hours, or probably most of you in the next 24 hours, can actually email to me the 3 biggest takeaways you have from this session, and I will send you a complimentary copy of that book back. Maybe they can do that. So you can just, make a note of my email ID if you want before I get into the subject matter, info@kuiljeit.uppaal.com. Please look at Kuiljeit Uppaal from Sukriti's branding. Get the spelling right. So it's info@kuiljeit.uppaal.com. Send me your 3 biggest takeaways tomorrow before 7 o'clock. All right, 24 hours from now. And I will choose, the best 3, and you will get a complimentary copy of that book, which is going to amplify your learning here on further. Anyway, so coming back to the actual subject, here we are. Let's move into it. So firstly, I want you all to do one thing before I even start sharing the information. Firstly, you need to cleanse. And what do you need to cleanse? You need to cleanse your mind out here, okay? Firstly, accept the truth. Most of the people, whether they're business owners or they're professionals or students or people as such, I've realized have a little problem in trying to pick up something new. You know what a sponge does, right? It absorbs. Now, I want you to be a dry sponge, not a wet sponge that has already so much of water or liquid within it. I want you to be a dry sponge. So whatever you have in terms of your learning, just keep it to one side in a golden box. It's there to stay regardless. In the next, 30, 40 minutes, all I want you to do is be like a dry sponge that is willing to absorb anything and everything that I give you so that you have the maximum amount of takeaways, okay? So have the acceptance of the truth, firstly, and I've seen this happen, okay? Business owners, for example, they don't invest enough in themselves in comparison to what they invest in their products. And that's a fact. So I think it's time that you start looking at yourself, even if you're not a business owner, okay? There is a huge scope to be an incredible version of yourself. So be in inner acceptance of yourself as a person with all your supposed flaws and imperfections or whatever you call them, okay? The fact is you're unique in your own way. So firstly, have the acceptance to pick up something new that will help you to enhance yourself, all right? When we talk of reinvent and reboot, the starting point is exactly that. You need to work on all your 3 dimensions, your inner, your outer, and your social self, but with a clear zone. So cleanse your mind out and say, here I am, ready to take it on. And I will help you to discover your navigation systems. Now, your inner navigation system is basically to know about your inner truths, about yourself, your values, your beliefs, your core inner self. Your external navigation system is to know about your body and your external manifestations, your management mechanisms for your external body. And of course, with your social navigation system, we're talking about discovering your interpersonal attributes, your life skills, your social and networking skills for your social life. All right, so the starting point is the Prim cycle. Now, Normally, I would throw in a session n number of questions. I know we're going to try and keep it as interactive as we can, but I can't make possibly every single thing interactive because we don't have so much time. But you can make a note of few things, at least to start thinking on that track. So the first few questions I would typically throw at you is define yourself. Who are you? More than often people say, I'm an assistant manager at so and so place. I'm the CEO of this. And that's your label, for heaven's sake. Who are you? Have you even asked yourself that question? What do you describe as by people around you? What are you passionate about? What are your important roles in life? What is it that you care for in life? What are the 7 values that you resonate with? What motivates you towards your goals? What are your goals in life? What makes life worth living, etc., etc.? N number of questions. Start probing inside. Maybe you've never asked these questions to yourself, so that's a starting point. Start looking at yourself. Just like organizations create a brand image, one needs to perceive oneself also as a brand and understand what one stands for or what sort of presence one wants to create. That will involve understanding your core value system, understanding what is it when we talk of your identity, what is it that you want to be known as? What do you want people to remember you as? And there has to be clarity and consistency in everything one does because it's very important. Whether it's your language, whether it's the etiquette, whether it's your grooming or choosing the kind of clothes you wear or accessories or whatever. This is all helping you to project yourself as a brand. And it's important to constantly work on all those dimensions of yourself as an entire entity. Okay. So that you become memorable in the perceiver's mind. You have pigeonholed what you are all about, the brand called you. You have pigeonholed that in the mind of the perceiver. That's extremely important. Another thing that I mentioned earlier is the core value system. Now, what is that? It's the core foundation and your values. All your values and your inner thoughts get triggered off, and your thoughts lead to an action, right? You taking an action. And when these actions are constantly repeated over and over again, they become a habit. And that behavior pattern that finally builds your character and reputation. And eventually that brings in your image. That brings in the persona and image that you are pushing across, apart from actualization of your dreams that happen, because now you have a certain entity. So if your core value system is in place and sorted out, it will impact all of the things and, of course, your destiny. So let me give you an example. If I'm talking about my value system, okay? Now, what is exactly a value system and how do you get one? What you do is you start triggering some words in your mind that you think you resonate with in the best manner, or that think that you depict. You stand for those. You own them in one way. So when I'm talking of Kuiljeit Uppaal, I'm talking of excellence, of integrity, of harmony, of commitment, of logic, creativity, contribution. Now, these are the words that I know. They're like tuck, 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 tuck. They're just coming out because I know I resonate with these words. These are words I can own and say, yes, I stand for them. So the first exercise you need to do is start finding your core foundation. So one was the Prim Cycle, which I threw questions at you. Second is this. Start understanding, what do you stand for? What is it that says that, okay, when we're talking of person A, these are the 6, 7 things that typically are synonymous to this person. What are your core values? What are your 7 core values? Let me throw this at you. Okay, so make a note of this and definitely do this. Okay, when you have identified your core, consistently talk to your core. All right, this is your basis of existence. It is your identity. It is your intelligence and your uncorrupted individuality.
Got a request to go a little slower because people can pick it up a little bit.
All right.
Yeah.
So do I need to repeat that one more time?
Just maybe, yes. Just go a little bit in terms of
I'll
how
do
to
that.
define. I think the first question was to figure out how to define yourself. Who are you? So
Yeah.
you need to ask yourself a lot
So
of questions
lot of questions,
and
right? So I
understand
threw
what is
some,
around you. Then is
yeah,
understanding the 7 core values, the words that you resonate with the most.
absolutely, absolutely. So once you have done that and you've identified your 7 core values, each one of you, start talking to your inner self. It's very, very important to talk to your inner self.
But let's go back, Kuljit, a little,
First,
because I think a lot of people will say, okay, what are these words? I don't even know how to begin. So should we just start? I mean, put a lot of words down and then select? It's kind of like making a hashtag cloud for yourself.
Absolutely. In fact, these are techniques I've mentioned in my book. I didn't want to elaborate too much because I didn't have the time. But now that you're asking me, let me tell you that. So it is randomly just putting whatever comes to your mind, and you may get 30, 40, 50 words that come. For somebody, for example, somebody might just say, okay, for me, I'm a family person. Family is like my core system. Somebody says love for me. Somebody says, compassion resonates with me. But the fact is, for you to arrive at your core seven, you have to do that drill of slowly sieving by, n number that you have landed up with, whether it's 20 or 15 or 30 or 40, doesn't matter. Slowly and steadily, actually thinking that, does this actually make me like feel so close to it? Do I really resonate this? And it needs thinking. It'll take an hour or so, maybe a little more. If you really want to do it seriously, it'll take you that much time. But that's okay, because remember, once you have identified, the journey ahead becomes very easy. So ask yourself, even go back to maybe instances in your life where you may have made certain decisions. For example, if I'm talking of integrity, now for me, integrity means somebody who is truthful, sticks with honesty, does what he believes, is committed in what he wants to do. When he gives his word, he sticks with it, and so on and so forth. So when these values come in, please don't go for dictionary meanings. What does that word mean to you is more important, right? So you have to elaborate that word in your own head and say, when I talk of family, it means this. When I talk of integrity, it means this. When I talk of excellence, I mean this. When I talk of excellence, for example, I'm talking about giving my 100% to every single thing I do. Now, that 100% could be maybe at work. It could be with my family in terms of time that I give. When I'm cooking, I'm giving my 100% right there. When I'm being a mother, I'm being right there with my child in every single thing I do, and so on and so forth. For me, that is excellence. So it's not about, okay, let me go to the dictionary and see what that word means. No, you got to go beyond that and actually explore yourself. That's why I was coming to the next point where you're talking to your
Before
core.
we go to the next, why seven? Why are we boiling down these 20 words into
Okay,
seven?
normally, and research has gone to show that it doesn't take only one or two things that are synonymous with a personality. So seven is a figure that I picked up based out of a lot of research, and where I felt that it is quantum wise enough to kind of talk about you in terms of an entire rounded personality. Otherwise, it becomes a little skewed when you just do one or two things or three attributes. So it is trying to give a more holistic dimension to yourself, because you're talking about working yourself on various parameters. So it becomes important to actually explore a little wider dimension about yourself. If you don't feel you have seven, that's fine. Come down to five, come down to six. But largely speaking, I would urge you to do, at least seven, because it kind of explores your, personality in a wider dimension. Okay. So if it's all good, I'll move on from here now. And so I was talking of talking to your core. Start having a rendezvous with yourself whenever you can. All right. Because this is your basis of existence, as I said. It's your identity, your intelligence, your uncorrupted individuality of sorts, right? And when you want to explore yourself, you can never lie to your own inner conscience. You can never lie to yourself. Despite what you may tell the other person, you know your inner being more than anyone else in the world. So here is the time to honestly explore yourself, all right? Now, as I said earlier, the image is an amalgamation. Prim was an amalgamation of three things, like I said, the divine trident that I talked of. Research has gone to show that image is an amalgamation of three perspectives. It can be looked at three perspectives. One is your self-image. Second is your projected image. And third is your perceived image. Let me explain each one of them. Self-image is the image that I think I have of myself. Okay. Projected image is the image I want to project or that I project about myself. And the third is the perceived image, which is what people perceive of you. So, largely speaking, your image is going around these three parameters. It's an amalgamation of the three. And that's why we need to kind of keep a neat mix. Now, I'll not get into all of that part. I'm just sharing this with you that it is not only about what you believe you are, it's also about what you're projecting and what people are believing you are. So, we need a correction on everything. We need to be able to manage all of that together. All right. And I will tell you ways to do that as we move along. Now, I have a very nice sentence which I want to share, and I want you to listen to it very carefully. I came across this sentence. There's this researcher called Seats, and I actually stopped when I looked at it. because it just made so much of meaning. The sentence is, you cannot not communicate. I'll repeat that. You cannot not communicate, which means what? You are constantly emitting a message. You are constantly communicating a message. Every single second, every minute, you are sending out a signal to your perceiver. Now, whether you're saying it in words or even just through your language in terms of your body, there is constantly some messaging happening. All right. Now, interestingly, somewhere in the 1950s, there was this gentleman who studied the impact of the message we make. And I want to share the findings. Okay. He declared the findings, of course, in 1972 or so. So the findings were very interesting. He said that 55% of the impact of the message we make comes out from your body language and your appearance. 38% comes out from the tonality of your voice. And 7% comes out from what you say in terms of the content you speak. All right? Interesting, isn't it? Now, there are a few things that come in as revelations. One is, I think we do it exactly the reverse. We focus so much on what we want to say that we tend to sometimes forget the 93%. Now, why should we work only on 7%? We should get a full 100%, isn't it? So this study became very interesting as a landmark of sorts to push people to firstly understand, and it's a very widely acclaimed research, by the way. So most people are even oblivious of this truth, that the fact is we don't even push ourselves to try and explore the 93% enough. So I think we should make it 100%, okay? Every individual has an image, regardless of it being good or bad, striking or repelling, constructive or unconstructive. And this image is in constant estimation by the outside world. It is therefore very, very important to realize what sort of messages are you emitting? What sort of messages are you constantly sending out? Like I said, this research is one thing. And apart from that, research has also gone to show that people form opinions about you in just few seconds of having met you, just pretty much from your visual appearance itself. And that is that 55%, by the way, that I spoke of, right? So when you want to make your first impression, remember, it's not only the first impression, by the way, you also want to have a lasting impression. Leverage on all the aspects. Don't stick with only the 7%. That's a solid key that I'm giving you, all right? Work on the 100% at every point in time. Now, when we are talking of important aspects that we want to keep in mind with regard to Prim, the key is being authentic. So the starting point for you is be a true representation of yourself, okay? Where one's image has to be allied with one's personal goals, way of life, your preferences, your authentic reflection of what you are, which means your image is not just a standalone, okay? It's about you, the meaning you give to your life, your purpose, your significance, all of that. And don't have to copy anybody. Please don't. In fact, if you have to do that, then that's not image at all. That's not Prim at all, okay? So you have to be a true reflection of yourself, a true representation. And that's where your 7 core values again come in play, all right? It's all connected, by the way. When you have understood what you represent, you will realize everything you do rotates around that. I gave you the example of, my integrity part, remember? So let me give you an example over here. Let's say I want to make a decision. If I'm operating out of something which is true, honest, I will be very happy making a decision because it is in line with my core value system. But if that gets upset, I'm not happy with my decisions. So there's a little retaliation that's happening in my head. I'll move deeper in when I go into that, but I'll probably brace that topic one more time as we move along. Coming back to the core elements of Prim. So we're talking of you being very, very authentic. Second is being appropriate. Now, would you wear the same clothes you wear to work? Would you wear the same clothes to bed? No. Do you talk to your child the way you talk to your boss? No. And so on and so forth. I'm just giving examples, right? So every single situation in your life, you need to be appropriate to the occasion in the way you speak, in the way you carry yourself, in your behavior, in everything that you do. You have to be appropriate, and that's sensible, right? So it's extremely important to be appropriate. And of course, why not look attractive in the middle of all of that? Yes, I think that's absolutely important. Why not? Also, just going along, I just want to tell you that a lot of people have this misnomer that everything to do with image is all about, high cost, buying big brands, etc., etc. Oh my God, that's completely wrong. You can be dressed in the simplest of khadis and have a fantastic image. Have a fantastic image. It's got nothing to do with expenditures out here. It's not an expensive process. If there's anything at all, it just needs effort from here and the will to make that difference to yourself. All right. So now let me share a very simple image cycle, something very easy to do, okay, in the way you can operate. So let's start with a 4-piece journey. The first piece, okay, or the first step, if I may say, is stand in front of a mirror, all right, preferably a full length mirror. Look at yourself into the mirror, okay? What do you see in front of you? And when you're looking at yourself, don't look at it at, like, if I'm Kuiljeit, right? And I'm looking at the mirror, I'm not looking at it as Kuiljeit pretty much. I'm just looking as person X. And I'm looking at this person in the mirror. All right. So first thing is, how do we see ourselves? Okay. The first step. Now you may see a million things out there. Research has gone to show that more than often, people are looking for faults within themselves. People will say, I don't like my nose. I wish my hair was straighter. I wish I was taller. I wish I didn't have too much prosperity around my abdomen and so on and so forth. What we do is inherently, we tend to trash ourselves first. Now, that's the first thing you need to negate and get out of, okay? Love yourself. So the first step is self-love. And that will come by just probably believing in yourself. And I, of course, again, go by into processes as we move along. But the first thing you need to do is when you look at yourself, you have to tell yourself, you are the most exquisite thing on earth. How many of you even get up in the morning, give yourself a flying kiss when you look into the mirror and say, I love you. You're the best thing on earth. Maybe you need to start doing that because self-love starts right from there, from your body image. And that's very, very important. But anyway, I'll come back to that part later. Coming back to the 4-step journey, this is not the time you're doing self-love. This is the time you're actually figuring out stuff for yourself. So all the faults you found in yourself, typically, just pen them down on a piece of paper. The next thing is, how do we dress and groom? Now, here be critical. I know you may obviously be wearing things you love, and the colors that you use is obviously from your favorites and so on and so forth, but try and do it as objectively as you can. All right. Now, the next step that you would typically do is how others. Okay, no, before that, I think what you need to also do, the third step is, how do you feel? How do you act? How do you respond? How do you think? All of these things. So, in short, how do you think? How do you feel? How do you act? How do you behave? Okay, so now we're coming to your behavioral areas in your third step. Are you the kind who's constantly extremely angry, irritable? Are you over emotional? Are you very friendly? Are you, always interrupting people? Because it's also talking of mannerisms, right? We're talking of behavior. Are you always cynical? Are you whatever? Okay, figure it out for yourselves. You could have long lists, endless lists, okay? And of course, the last one is when we're coming to other people. Now, we've done 3 steps, which is all about self. You're analyzing for yourself. The fourth one is go out to somebody, in your domain area or someone you trust, actually. I don't know who you think you would like to go to. Please don't go to your mothers. They're the most loving creatures. They won't see easily anything wrong with you, probably. Unless you tell them that, Mom, I'm doing this exercise, just help me out. Maybe your spouses, because I think they will get an opportunity to say a lot. Watch out there, though. But regardless, I think it's important to kind of get the right feedback. So when you ask them about all of these things that you've just done in the first 3. Don't tell them what you have shared for yourself, but ask them objectively and say, okay, just tell me, what do you think of me? How do you think I dress? How do you think I behave? How do I think? How do I act? How do I react to people? Etc., and get their feedback. Now that you have your 4 points addressed, you have a point A. That's your starting point. You need to reach point B. Okay. So now what you have to do is start looking at what are the areas I need to work on. So you have a list. And now you get into a continual cycle. You keep doing it over and over and over till you realize the list starts getting lesser and lesser and you're getting to be a better version of yourself. All right. So now I'll come down straight into the 6 elements of image. Okay. I had counted them out for you. Let's start with verbal skills. I'll quickly run past them in terms of the quick nuances of each one of them so that you get an idea of what it entails. So let's start with verbal skills, as I said. So in verbal skills, obviously, it's everything to do with words, the usage of words, whether it is spoken or written. So it will have dimensions like, what kind of volume do you use? There are people who speak in one volume regardless of the size of audience. And it's really funny because I've heard from a lot of clients of mine when they've been so soft and, communication itself is broken because people haven't heard you. And so it affects the productivity of the team. It affects the morale of the team also, by the way, and a number of things. So I'm not getting there right now, but your volume, your pace, how fast or slow you speak, the tone in which you speak when you say hello versus hello, you know, your tone is how you attach your heart to your voice, right? But remember the 38% tonality that I spoke of earlier, right? So it addresses that when you're using a good tone, when you're speaking to people. The clarity with which you speak, how do you enunciate? How do you pronounce words? Do you have a mother tongue influence when you speak? Do you find people coming up to you and saying, pardon me, can you repeat again? Maybe there's a problem in the way you're communicating. So you need to watch out in the way you pronounce your words. So look out for that. How do you inflect? That means how do you stress on certain syllables or words to create a larger impact when you're orating, how you're doing your public speaking, and so on and so forth. These are skills, of course, which most orators pick up. And I think many of us who are team leaders or business owners or maybe people who are in the space of actually emitting messages on stage, when you're sharing or you're doing talks, it's very important to inflect when you speak. It adds a lot of, meaning to what you say. So these are basically things to do with verbal skills. The other part of the communication angle is, of course, your non-verbal communication, which is to do with your body language. One of the oldest ways of communicating, okay, even before we actually had languages. So your posture, how do you stand, sit, how do you walk? All of these come and say a lot about you. Having your shoulders back, standing erect, stomach in, and always having that posture which shows confidence, which emits a personality that people look up to and suddenly feel like, oh my God, look at her. She's like, wow, that's the kind of posture you want to have. The kind of gestures you use your body as much as you can, but you don't want to keep on doing this, right, all the while. Imagine me talking constantly like this. It's just too much. So when you use gestures, in what quantity do you use? Sometimes they amplify your verbal skills, and that's very important. The gestures you also use sometimes can communicate wrong messages or right messages, whatever be it. We use gestures like, let's say, thumbs up. It's a global gesture. Everybody understands what it means vis-a-vis a thumbs down. Uh, there are a million gestures, and I would really urge all of you to go to the net, kind of look at, what are the kind of gestures that you can actually use in your normal communication. Another very important thing in body language is eye contact. There are a lot many people, sometimes out of hesitation or just being very conscious, they don't make eye contact with the people they're talking to. They look away, they're hesitant, they're shy, but that's not good. It breaks communication. It's a barrier. So you need to make sure that when you're communicating with people, you have an eye contact and you're constantly interacting with people. I'm looking at each one of you here right now, and I'm trying to make an eye contact as much as I can. Because if I had a presentation, pretty much you would have been only looking at the presentation. But I want people to look at me, and I want to look at all of you, right? So that's what I'm going to be doing. Then comes in your personal space. Every human body has a certain silent human space, a territorial need. You don't want people invading that territorial need. Not many times, we make mistakes. We sometimes invade. We come too close to a person and then try and talk. And you will realize that person is cringing from inside and trying to move away because you've gone into his personal space and domain area. So you need to understand that you need to maintain a 1 arm distance, when you're talking to somebody, and maybe a 4 feet distance if there's like a group of sorts, when you're engaging just socially and you're an acquaintance of sorts. So a very close distance up to touching from there to about 18 inches is only for your family members, your children, your spouse, your parents, and so on and so forth. So that's that inner space. And of course, you have beyond 4 feet when you're engaging with people in the public as such. So you need to respect that distance and keep in mind when you're talking to a person that you're not invading into his space. There are lots of parts of the body which convey messages constantly, right from the frown that you have here, from the eyebrows that move up and down to the way you, click your mouth up, the way you smile, the way you use your shoulders, a number of things. The way we create locks, sometimes we just fold our arms and we're creating a lock. You're trying to show that there's a barrier of communication unknowingly sometimes. Knowledge of body language also tells you what not to do. That's very important. And apart from that, it helps you to study another person's mindset. What's happening with him? You understand the vibe over there when you understand body language a little better. So it's important. Etiquette, another thing. Now, etiquette is basically a code of conduct of sorts. It just teaches you the right guidelines of social behavior, social demeanor of sorts. So how you greet people, how you introduce yourself, when you give your card, if you're in business, then how you give your card, and how you do your handshakes. And there are almost 25 to 30 types of etiquette today, and they become very important because the world itself has become like a global village, and we are transacting and doing business across latitudes and longitudes. So it's so important for us to understand these small little things, how you talk to people on the phone, how you interact on your emails, how you are there on social media space. Are you just doing a copy paste of somebody else's quote and probably not even citing that person? This is disgraceful because most people do that today. People try and showcase themselves as larger than life. It's nice to do that, but then I think you should be more original and authentic with your own content going there. So there are people who will throw across, quotations of somebody else or information about somebody else, and they do not have the mere courtesy to kind of quote that person. Now, that's not right, right? Similarly, when you are going to a five-star, do you know the dining etiquette? Because you don't want to have, an embarrassment happening to yourself. So, and I've seen a lot of people coming up to me and saying, "Can you teach us dining etiquette, please? Because we don't know the right things, we don't know the crockery and the cutlery." So I do like three-day sessions with them, trying to teach them dining etiquette. But there are a million such etiquettes. But I think most important is conversational etiquette because we're dealing with conversation all the while. The right kind of conversation, the way you communicate, the kind of empathy you use today, it's empathetic communication. Especially in COVID times, it's all about conversation that speaks from the heart, from the soul, connecting with people on a different pitch altogether. So it's very, very important to deal with people with empathy today. Then there are other types of etiquette, like I said. There's party etiquette, there's multicultural etiquette, there is elevator etiquette, there's escalator etiquette, there are all kinds of etiquette. So read up the more you can, the better equipped you would be to take on various challenges in terms of etiquette. Coming to clothing, and I know there are many people who get very, very interested in clothing. But before I move on, I want to understand, Sukriti, how much time do we have?
We are at 6:47, so we have like about 10 minutes.
Okay.
We'd
So
like to
I'm
take
just
a
going to,
couple of questions.
yeah, I'm going to kind of quickly wrap the six elements and then we'll kind of move into questions. Then comes in clothing, like I said, and the clothing segment is huge for men and women because there is so much there. Right from the wardrobe essentials that you have, the accessories, your footwear, to your body shape and how you dress based on your body shape, the kind of line, shape, color, texture, pattern, all of that, how you drape your sari, the international style scale, which I think helps out people from various domains and various professionals who get, equipped to understand what is the right thing to do in terms of their dressing for the kind of industry they belong to. So all of that is very important. And grooming, of course, which is to do more with your skin care and hair care, nail care, your oral and oral hygiene, your mouth odor, your body odor, and makeup, and so on and so forth. And the most important in those six elements is self-concept, which is about the rational picture you have about yourself, the mental picture you have about yourself, and it deals with the developmental levels of self, right from your body image, which I spoke of, the mirror thing, right? When you look at yourself, the image you have about yourself, which leads you to have a certain self-image. And the self-image, if you have a good self-image about yourself, it leads to your self-esteem and eventually to self-confidence. And that leads to self-competence, and eventually you are into self-actualization of your goals. Fitness is a big part of self-concept also, because when you are looking at your own body, you need to ensure that you are in that domain where you start feeling good, feeling healthy, and are actually fit. Last is the strategic self-management part, which I spoke of. Now, I want everybody probably going forward to look at creating a vision for themselves. I think it's important when you're looking at all of these elements that I've spoken about, create a vision board of sorts. A vision board is nothing but maybe listing out of what you feel you want to do in life. Just pretty much anything. It doesn't have to be only academic or only professional or only personal. It can be everything. But when you have this vision board, you will attach a timeline to it. Okay. For example, if I say, okay, I want to be an author, I'm already an author, that's a different story. But let's say, I'm just saying hypothetically, I'm going to write my book in the next 3 years. So this is a part of my vision board. I want to make sure that I am a speaker on so and so platform, maybe with TED in the next 2 years. So what am I doing? I'm defining a vision for myself and I'm putting a timeline to it. After that, you start strategizing for yourself, and that vision is very important. I think most of us in this current phase of the pandemic are not even thinking about it. We're not even doing it. So we are like confused people, just waiting day on day, looking at numbers and saying, oh my God, it's just getting from bad to worse. And, we don't know the way ahead and so on and so forth. So I think going forward, it's very important to have a vision for yourself so that you can start building on yourself. All right. And to do that, you need to look at your wheel of life. Your wheel of life typically contains 8 aspects, and you need to look at all those 8 aspects. It's normally health, relationships, friends and family, your wealth, possessions, um, learning and personal growth, your fun and leisure, and of course, your career. So you need to start looking at areas where you're strong and where you think you need to work on, and start building a vision board for yourself. So now I'm going to open the floor for questions because we had just about 10 minutes to go. There's so much to share. I just wish I
I
could
think
go
that's
on
what
and
a
on,
lot of
Sukriti.
people are saying. There is so much to share. So, what do you think is the most? I mean, like you gave us so many tips. So, what is the first thing, like you said, that, okay, first I need to understand what is that one thing everybody should go home and do today?
The first thing they need to do is, like I said, acceptance of the fact that there is scope to get better. First, wire yourself that way. Positive affirmations always make a difference. When you don't have that itself, you can't take on a journey. And even if you do, it'll be just for a 1 hour. We're not looking. Prim is like breathing. How you breathe every day, Prim has to be integrated into your lifestyle of making sure you're constantly working on yourself. You are constantly investing in everything that you do. And it's nothing about only, just saying, okay, do din ka khushi khushi, I will do something and I leave it at that. Second thing they need to do is shed the baggage of previous negative codes that are there in their head. In terms of saying, oh, I've tried this didn't work for me. Please leave it, give it a shot. And all those things could be just disruptions in your mind, which you have accumulated over the years. So you need to shed that baggage and start afresh. And then once you're encoded correctly, I spoke of the cycle earlier, right? The 4-step cycle, the image cycle. Start doing the image cycle. You've already addressed probably those questions about who are you and so on and so forth. Get your foundation up, your core foundation values that I spoke of, right? So once you have your core value system in place, all of your questions start coming in. A few quick tips that I would really look at for all of you is, you know, very often you may say that, okay, I'm doing whatever it takes, I'm still not there. Sometimes you need to look around yourself and see who are the people around you in your life. Are they complementing you or are they kind of pulling you back? I call them your gravity circle, all right? Because like the sun is with the 9 planets, they work in beautiful cohesion. This is your mastermind. Your gravity circle are your buddies. These are the people who will provide you a storehouse of ideas. They will help you. They will criticize you also. They'll support you unconditionally. We all have these, but do you have such people around you? If you don't, time to start looking. Create a list of such people who are in your gravity circle. Another very important thing is have a work-life balance. Most of us in the current times are so focused, we're losing our jobs. How can I make it work better and so on and so forth? Did you know that you actually amplify whatever you do when you maintain a balance in life? And for that, you need to have a zing time in your life. A zing time is nothing. I've called that zing time because that's the time, that's the time we love because it makes us happy. It makes us light and spirited. So it's very important to have that in your life. Bring in that kind of zing time into your life and have zingots like singing, dancing, painting, cooking, whatever you like. I don't know, but just do that. The core essence here would be no matter what you do, you need to have the power of auto-suggestion. Okay. This allows you to tell your mind that you can do anything. Remember your mind, you're listening to your mind. So everything you say to yourself with belief, with conviction, over and over again, you will start being able to tell yourself you are in the capacity to do anything you put your mind to. Another very important thing in this current time is investing in yourself continually. You have to evolve. You cannot afford to vegetate. The need to be relevant is most important at this point in time. And not just now, it's always been there. But I think you need to have a one up in your domain area, whatever is the domain area you belong to. But apart from that, complement it with, Prim. Set out, don't just do goal setting. There are a lot of people, again, I come across who just do goal setting for the heck of it. Oh, I've set my goals. Okay, big deal. You have your goals. So what happens further? You know what happens? Most of the time, I've realized that people come up saying that I had this goal and I planned it like this, like this, like this. I did a smart goal, but it didn't still work out. That's because you've not attached an outcome to it. For example, if you've had a goal like, I want to lose 10 kgs in 3 months, just giving a random figure. I'm not saying it's achievable or not. I'm just giving a random figure. So you thought of reducing 10 kgs of weight in 3 months, or let's say 6 months. Okay. You started working on it, etc., etc. But maybe there are times you're not as excited. You're trying, you're like doing all the exercises, you're dieting, you're doing whatever. But if you tell yourself, by the end of this, when I lose my 10 kgs, I will be a healthier person. I will look like a diva, and I will look so appealing, and I will be able to get back into those college clothes I used to wear in my college days, and I'm going to look so amazing. That is an outcome. So every single time you remind yourself of the outcome, your goal gets more empowered. I used to do that for my PhD. When I wanted to achieve my target, every time I would remember that moment with my PhD, during the PhD, receiving my certificate from the President of India. And every single time I would fall during those years of research and stumble, that one, visual that I used to have in my head would again get me up and say, okay, I'm there. So that's the difference between goals and outcomes. It's very important to have outcomes because you have to excite yourself to achieve that. Now, if I'm talking of Prim, and if you don't have a visual, imagine each one of yourself as a diva who is like bang on everything you've imagined yourself to be. In terms of that entity that speaks so beautifully, so immaculate. You have, the best skills. You can build your own lexicon, your own individual lexicon of words and grow yourself from there. And every single day, add a new word into your jargon. You can dress, you can start studying more about what colors look nice on me and start building yourself. You will find you will get there because the outcome is clearly defined. You have that imagery about that diva called you, about that fantastic, incredible, and powerful version of yourself. So you need to just keep at it and it'll happen. So I think largely speaking, that's what I would typically recommend that people need to start doing.
We'll take the next question from Vidya. Vidya, go ahead.
Hello, ma'am. Am I
Hi,
audible?
Vidya.
Hi.
Yes, you.
It was a power-packed session. I missed a few minutes in the beginning, but I'm very much, blessed to be here. So my question to you is, I have a mind block. Okay, I know I'm the person. I know I could be better. I put a lot of work, but what happens is, for example, if I am going to give a presentation, I put a lot of work, effort, and then my inner voice is telling like, okay, you're going to have a communication problem. See, there is always a positivity and negativity. It's like I am pulling myself down. So how should I overcome this?
Yeah. So good question. Thank you, Vidya. So what you have shared, I did share this a little bit in earlier, but I will repeat this in a more elaborate manner. It's a very normal thing for most people to do that. And this is a typical sign of holding on to your baggage. Okay. Every mind is wired in a certain way. Okay. We are encoded in a certain way. And it's very important to understand what do our codes speak. Now, Vidya, in your case, your mind is constantly telling you you can't do it. You can't communicate in that manner, right? The first thing you need to do is firstly shed that apprehension. Now, you have built this because maybe over the years, multiple times you had these experiences where you realized that probably it was not working, or somebody probably criticized you, or you criticized yourself, and so on and so forth. But for heaven's sake, the Vidya of yesterday is not the Vidya of today. The good news here is neuroplasticity. There was a beautiful research done, by the way, in Stanford. Neuroplasticity is a concept where you can build neural connections every single day for yourself. So, which means what? You can never say that, oh, this is the way I am, take it or leave it. A lot of people say that, right? It's so incorrect. So, Vidya, in your case, the fact that you have this inhibition in your head and you tell yourself that, no, I don't think I can communicate well enough, it's just a misnomer, believe me. So, what you have to do is tell yourself. So, the first thing is write a positive affirmation that tells you in a very confident manner that, yes, I can do this. So, your positive affirmation here would be Vidya communicates beautifully. What is the basic thing that you find lacking? I don't know. I mean, you need to tell me that. Can you just quickly tell me what do you find in your communication that's lacking?
Vidya, go ahead. Uh, she may have, Vidya.
Never mind. Never mind. I will just preempt her. So more than often people will say, no, I don't have fluency, or you know what, I'm searching for words, or I don't have a good vocabulary, I don't have the right accent, I don't speak like this, I don't speak like that, so on and so forth. Trash all that. Firstly, tell yourself, I can do it. If this person can do it, even I can do it. Look at when I say this person, it could be just anyone you look up to, or you want to idolize, or you believe that this person is a good orator, so on and so forth. Tell yourself, if that person can do it, just another ordinary human being, so can I. Right? That's number one. And when you tell yourself, tell it with conviction. All right. You have to convince yourself that this is true, because actually speaking, science has proven it is true. I just spoke of neuroplasticity. You can rewire yourself, get neural connections. When you tell your mind something over and over and over again, it will happen. So shed that baggage, tell that, negative committee that sits in your head to shut up and sit down. And just tell yourself that I'm going ahead because I will make myself the most, shall I say, incredible communicator. And it'll happen. And of course, it comes with practice. You have to do work to be able to get there. But don't let a mind block hold you back, because that's so untrue. And any one of you who's listening, whatever be your mind block, it's time to shed it now. Just shed it. Don't hold back.
We'll take the next question from Diksha. Diksha, go ahead.
Yeah, hi Sukriti, hi Kuiljeit ma'am. Thank you
Hi,
so much for
Diksha.
giving me the opportunity to, ask the question. Ma'am, I just wanted to know like how to deal or how to cope up with the
Can you
criticism,
be a
which,
little louder? Diksha, a
yeah,
little louder, please.
yes, ma'am. I just wanted to know like how to cope up or how to deal with the criticism, which one can get every time, even on, doing any of the little of the task. Even if I know that I'm doing it
Criticism
correct.
and how to
Deal with,
deal
deal
with
with
criticism.
criticism. Okay. How does one deal with criticism? Yeah, carry on, please.
Yeah, even if I know that I'm doing this task in a correct way, in my own way, then also if I get to know like, no, this should not be done like this should be done like this, then how to deal with that, stress you can say, or that pain which one person goes through, how to deal with that.
Okay. So, Diksha, the first thing is, that's a nice question, by the way. The first thing
Yeah.
you should do is differentiate criticism from constructive feedback. Okay. Sometimes a person may be genuinely giving you a good feedback, which is actually going to help you in your way forward. So, you must have the wisdom to be able to differentiate between the two. And for the ones who criticize you, who cares? Do you really care? I mean, criticism, sometimes done for the heck of it, is not even needed to be engaged with in your mental frame of mind. What I do is I bubble out people who I believe are just criticizing me because they enjoy it. Sometimes, there are people who just say things, and it happens a lot in social media space, by the way. We all face it. People just for the heck of it will give you a, rundown and show a thumbs down or say something nasty to you and so on and so forth. Are they that important? So the question you have to ask yourself is this person's input valuable to me? Is this input actually going to change my life? If it's not of any value, shut it. It doesn't matter. Just chuck it. And suddenly you'll realize, oh my God, there's no stress. Because I'm just giving so much of weightage to people who don't matter in my life. But if it is concrete stuff that's coming your way, it's actually a very healthy thing. I love feedback because I think that helps you to get better. So take in the feedback without taking the stress. What you have to say is, oh my God, I love this. This is an opportunity for me to get better. So every feedback you get is to be, again, it's all about how you wire yourself. So change the whole coding that you do for yourself and say that this is an opportunity to get better. And I'm going to make sure that I use the best that I can to get this sorted. Sounds good?
Yeah. So the last question we will take. Sorry, we are running out of time. I know, Manoj, you've had your hand up. Manoj, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sukriti. And it's really mesmerizing experience, energy experience from Dr. Kuiljeit Uppaal. I'm
Thank
really
you, Manoj.
happy that I'm able to even communicate with you in this talk. So I'm really impressed with the work, whatever the guidelines and working you have shown. And the very first point, I really like the acceptance, which if you have the acceptance, you can grow. But at the same time, a lot of challenges with like the right now Vidya or Diksha has come up with the questions. My only question is how to, once you start, you will definitely get us stuck. So to take the help from mentoring, from some sort of frameworks, some sort of directions and decisions, some sort of challenges while attempting the change in you, finding a new version of yours. So I don't know about Prim, what exactly you have mentioned in your book. I love to see that book on Amazon and like to order now only, today only. So I need to know, understand what kind of frameworks, how people, it is really, it's easy to start, but to reach that end, because it sounds very simple, but I can say it's not easy to reach the destination and the flow, the way you are speaking. I would only request one thing. If you can add some sort of slides, maybe 3 slides, which explains your, whatever you are talking, so that we would not be taking a lot of notes. We'll be rather focusing upon your talk and we can take maximum outcome out of it. With due respect, I just need to understand how can we, where we need to find out the mentors, the kind of frameworks, the kind of direction and decisions we need to take, or the kind of challenges while we are implementing what is being told by you.
Thank
Manoj,
you, Manoj. I do
thanks
agree.
for your question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So the key here is if you're the kind, I can make out you're a visual learner. So, and you also, while you're not so much of auditory, you're probably more of a visual learner, which is fine. So I would really urge all of you, in fact, who echo the similar thought as Manoj does, to please go buy a copy of Prim and Powerful. There are techniques there, there are power moves, there are do-it-yourself kind of techniques. You will read it and you will be able to do it. They're very simple. You don't have to think it's rocket science. The good thing about the book that a very conscious attempt that I made was to take away all the scientific jargon from that book. An 8th standard child can read it and a 60-year-old can also read it with the same amount of prose. It's written in a very simplistic manner. Go ahead, buy it. You will have all your questions sorted. The systems you're speaking of are already there. And there are many, many. There are like 20 chapters. There's so many processes, so many systems I've built into that. So I don't want to get onto this at this point in time. It makes a lot of sense to kind of go ahead and just buy the book. You will get all of whatever I've shared and much more in the book.
Well, thank you. I know there are lots of questions, but I hope this session at least got everyone thinking about their persona, their image management. What are they projecting internally? What are they projecting outwardly? And what is
Yeah.
their social image that is going out there? I think it
Yes.
gives a lot of food for thought in terms of what we really need to do and how we can get started. But now, of course, we are running out of time. Any closing thoughts as we end the session for today?
Yeah, in fact, I'll just echo what you just said. I've always believed that a desire changes almost nothing. So if you're just going to sit and just have a desire, nothing is going to happen. A decision will change something, but your determination, your hard work will change everything. Okay, so what you need to do is starting today, create your personal mission statement, if I may say, uh, wherein you, with the expanse of your heart and the strength of your character, you create your life and your legacy for yourself. You owe this to yourself. So create your personal mission statement and just, go bang on and start working towards a more powerful and incredible version of yourselves. And I want to wish you all good luck on that.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Please stay safe. I hope we gave you a little bit of direction. And as Kuljit said, please do get the book because it's too much information. It's too much that I think it would take us 3 days to cover it all, even if we tried to do it online.
Yes, absolutely. And for people who've had takeaways, like I mentioned in the beginning, with your permission,
Yes.
write into info@kuiljeittuppaal.com your 3 best takeaways, and I will send you a complimentary copy of the book. But you have to do it within 24 hours, right? So tomorrow, 7 o'clock, and it closes.
And
So
for
do
everyone that's saying thank you, it's our pleasure. And please do keep writing to us. It is that keeps us motivated and keeps us going to bring you more and more sessions like this. So, with that, I wish you a very good night. And with gratitude, Kuljit, we end for today.
thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. God bless. Thank you so much.